When a teenage delivery driver fixed $1 million corporate disaster in minutes, the powerful executive's response revealed something far more dangerous than anyone expected. 19-year-old Devin Carter never thought dropping off an order at Apex Innovations headquarters would change everything. Standing at the lobby counter waiting for his tip, his attention drifted toward the massive digital display where frantic engineers debated a broken system costing millions every single day. "They're approaching this completely backward," he whispered, studying the projection. The data architecture was fundamentally flawed. The receptionist, a polished woman named Jennifer, smirked. "Oh great, now the food delivery kid is a coding expert. Hilarious." Devin stayed quiet, but his eyes remained locked on the screen. The solution was crystal clear to him. A restructured node system combined with parallel processing would eliminate the crashes instantly. "Pardon me," he said, addressing the suited executives crossing the marble floor. "That system you're showing linear indexing is killing your speed. Switch to hierarchical clustering and watch it stabilize." Silence swallowed the room. A dozen corporate leaders stared at this young black man in a delivery uniform like he'd spoken an ancient, forgotten language. Victor Harrington, the company's CEO, a silver-haired man in his 50s, released a cold, dismissive laugh. "Son, do you understand how many doctorate-level engineers have spent half a year on this challenge?" Heat crept up Devin's neck, but his voice stayed level. "I understand you've hemorrhaged $89 million because the architecture collapses under 200,000 concurrent users." Harrington's smile vanished. "That precise figure hadn't been disclosed publicly. How could you possibly know that number?" Dr. Patricia Chun, the technology director, stepped closer with suspicion in her eyes. Devin exhaled slowly. His mother, Grace Carter, had maintained these offices for 14 years. During early morning shifts while she worked, he completed assignments in vacant conference rooms, unconsciously absorbing technical discussions and papers left unattended. But revealing that would expose his mother to judgment. "Just paying attention," he answered simply. Harrington folded his arms, a predatory grin spreading. "All right, young genius. Since you're so brilliant, prove it. Fix our problem right now." The challenge reverberated through the space like a verdict. Every eye turned toward Devin, some amused, others anticipating spectacular humiliation. What none of them realized was that this pizza delivery teenager had earned admission to Princeton at 16, but declined the full scholarship to care for his chronically ill mother. Devin studied the screen, then the expectant faces. Something flickered in his expression. Not panic, but a calm certainty that made several observers sense they'd gravely misjudged this person. "Fine," he said, retrieving a worn phone from his jacket. "But when I finish this, I need everyone here to remember you judged someone by appearance alone. If this story resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to discover how one moment of disrespect would trigger changes nobody could anticipate." Dr. Chun laughed sharply, the sound cutting through the tension. "This will be more entertaining than any show. Someone record when he crashes and burns." Devin watched employees gather from multiple floors, murmuring and gesturing at the delivery driver who dared challenge decades of engineering authority. 12 minutes, Harrington announced, checking his expensive timepiece. "If you can't boost performance by even 8%, I want you permanently banned from this building and your mother's employment terminated immediately." Devin's stomach dropped. How did Harrington discover that connection? "Oh yes," the CEO continued with venom. "Grace Carter, our overnight custodian for 14 years. Dedicated employee, but perhaps mandatory retirement is overdue, especially when she's raised a son who fabricates credentials." Shame burned through Devin's chest. His mother had surrendered everything, sleep, health, ambitions, so he could pursue education. She'd maintained 3 jobs after his father left, cleaning corporate spaces until dawn while Devin studied in shadowy corners of office buildings. "Having doubts, kid?" Harrington asked, detecting the tension. "Still eager to pretend you're a programmer?" Devin breathed deeply, remembering his mother's constant wisdom. "Son, when people try to diminish you, it's fear of your potential talking." "Start your timer," Devin said, approaching the workstation. Jennifer filmed everything on her device. "This is going viral," she told a coworker. "Amateur attempts tech challenge." Devin blocked out the commentary and concentrated. The system was more intricate than anticipated layers of inefficient code stacked like a structure built without proper engineering. But his trained perception, sharpened by countless nights in public libraries and free online courses, recognized the pattern immediately. As he typed, memories surfaced of every time he'd been underestimated. At school, where instructors viewed him as another struggling kid from the wrong neighborhood. During his Princeton interview, the admissions officer questioned whether he truly belonged there. In his own choice to refuse the scholarship, when everyone said he was destroying his only escape route. 8 minutes remaining, Harrington declared, clearly expecting catastrophic failure. Dr. Chen approached, observing the code Devon wrote. Her confident expression began crumbling. Wait. That methodology shouldn't work like that. Devon had completely redesigned the information framework in under 7 minutes. Where 300 lines of convoluted code existed, now 49 elegant, streamlined lines remained. What exactly did you do? Asked a young engineer with genuine curiosity. I treated the architecture like managing limited resources, Devon replied without looking away. When you have nothing, you master doing everything with less. I eliminated waste and organized essentials. Harrington moved closer, his smugness fading. That's impossible. Our finest minds dedicated 6 months to this project. Maybe the issue wasn't talent, Devon said calmly, but perspective. When you've never stretched $1 across 7 days, understanding true efficiency becomes difficult. Tension thickened. Employees exchanged nervous glances, recognizing something unexpected was unfolding. 4 minutes, Harrington muttered, confidence draining from his tone. Devon completed the final commands and stepped back. Done. Test it now. Dr. Chun hesitated, then initiated the simulation. The display flashed, data cascaded downward, then complete silence. The system processed 200,000 simultaneous requests in 2.8 seconds. 0 failures. 0 errors. That's not possible, someone breathed. Devon looked directly at Harrington. 94% performance improvement. 87% reduction in processing duration. Server costs should drop by nearly half monthly. The lobby became deathly quiet. Jennifer had stopped recording, mouth hanging open. Even the arrogant receptionist seemed speechless. Harrington clenched his fists, face reddening with rage and humiliation. That was an accident. A gimmick. You plagiarized that from somewhere. I can rebuild it from nothing if needed, Devon offered steadily. Or walk your team through every single line. Maybe even teach some lessons in system architecture. That's when Harrington made his catastrophic error. Completely losing composure, he shouted for everyone to hear, I refuse to be embarrassed by some black delivery boy. Security removed this vagrant immediately. The silence that followed was absolute. Dozens of phones had captured those exact words. The prejudice Harrington had concealed for years had just exploded publicly. Devon stood motionless, an almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. He'd accomplished exactly what he required. Not only solving the technical crisis, but also exposing the authentic character of the person leading this corporation. Fascinating, Devon said quietly, gathering his belongings. Because under federal employment regulations, workplace racial discrimination constitutes a serious offense. And considering approximately 20 people filmed this entire exchange, each new statement from Harrington's mouth only deepened his self-created disaster, while Devon maintained the composure of someone who transformed humiliation into the opening move of a far more intricate strategy just beginning. Harrington's words still resonated throughout Apex when Devon reached home 20 minutes later. He found his mother, Grace Carter, preparing their evening meal in the modest apartment they'd shared for 19 years. She examined her son's expression and immediately understood something significant had occurred. Tell me, she said, shutting off the stove and sitting at their scratch table. Devon recounted everything from noticing the coding error to Harrington's discriminatory words being captured by multiple devices. Grace listened silently, her eyes filling with simultaneous pride and concern. My son, she finally said, do you comprehend what you've just initiated? I've probably committed the worst mistake imaginable, Devon sighed. I've exposed both of us, endangered everything, and now, Grace interrupted firmly, you've demonstrated your true self. And if this man believes he can destroy our family after 14 years of me working to clean up his failures, he doesn't understand the Carter family. She stood and retrieved a dusty container from storage. Inside were letters, records, and photographs. Son, there are things about Apex you haven't learned. Things I've witnessed during all these years working nights. Devon examined the papers with growing astonishment. Fraudulent agreements, printed communications about illegal terminations, and images of executives engaging in prohibited substances on company premises. Mom, you collected all this evidence? When you're invisible, Grace smiled sadly, people speak and act as though you don't exist. 14 years, I observed and heard far more than I should have. The following day, Devon received an unexpected call. Hello, Devon Carter. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I'm an investigative journalist with Corporate Accountability Report. I saw yesterday's video that's going viral about your encounter with Victor Harrington. Devon hesitated. I'm uncertain about doing interviews. This isn't an interview, Elena interrupted. It's a collaboration proposal. I've been investigating illegal practices at Apex for 18 months. I have confidential sources confirming systematic discrimination patterns, but I need stronger proof. They met at a discreet downtown cafe. Elena was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s whose demeanor revealed years exposing corporate malfeasance. Devon, that video was merely the surface, Elena explained, displaying a folder packed with documentation. Harrington has a documented history of dismissing minority employees on fabricated grounds, compensating women below men for identical roles, and employing questionable financial practices for tax avoidance. Devon reviewed the documents, recognizing several names his mother had mentioned over the years. What do you need from me? Internal access. Your mother's worked there for 14 years. You possess remarkable technical abilities. And now Harrington has publicly underestimated you. He'll attempt damage control on the video scandal, but if we gather additional proof, we can destroy him entirely, Devon finished, determination sparking in his eyes. Meanwhile, at Apex headquarters, Harrington had summoned emergency meetings with legal and communications departments. The video had exceeded 300,000 views within 24 hours. I want that kid and his mother gone by week's end, he raged. And someone finds flaws in his solution. There must be errors somewhere. Dr. Chun, who'd remained unusually silent since the incident, finally spoke. Victor, perhaps we should offer the young man a position. He clearly possesses talent, and it could improve our public perception. Are you insane? Harrington exploded. I'm not rewarding some arrogant teenager who humiliated me publicly. Find a method to eliminate high-M, or I'll find people who will. What Harrington didn't know was that Dr. Chun had discreetly recorded the entire conversation. Years of observing the CEO's questionable behavior had finally reached a breaking point after witnessing genuine talent being rejected purely for prejudice. That evening, Chun called a number Elena had given Devon. I have something you'll want to hear, she said simply. Over subsequent days, Devon was transformed. Daytime, he continued delivering food and maintaining normal appearances. But at night, he worked with Elena, and now Chun, to systematically document every irregularity at Apex. They uncovered a disturbing pattern: inflated development contracts to shell corporations, minority staff systematically overlooked for advancement, and schemes where Harrington sold confidential product information to competitors. We have sufficient material to end his career and bankrupt the company, Elena said, during a midnight meeting at Devon's apartment. No, Devon replied calmly, surprising everyone. We don't want to destroy the company. Good people work their honest employees, depending on those positions. We want something more precise. Grace smiled, recognizing the wisdom she'd tried teaching her son for years. The best revenge isn't descending to their level, son. It's rising so high they feel microscopic looking upward. Devon nodded, a plan crystallizing. Harrington thinks I'm just an ignorant delivery driver. Let's weaponize that arrogance. He turned to Elena. You mentioned contacts on Apex's board of directors. 3 members are increasingly dissatisfied with Harrington's leadership. Why? Devon smiled dangerously. Because we're offering them an alternative they never anticipated. Harrington wants to humiliate me publicly. Perfect. We'll give him exactly that opportunity. As they strategized, none noticed a shadowy figure watching the apartment from an adjacent building. Harrington had hired private investigators to monitor the Carter family, certain he'd discover something incriminating. What he didn't know was that his own paranoia was becoming the final catalyst for his destruction. Every desperate action only provided more evidence for the dossier quietly growing against him. Devon looked at his mother, then Elena and Chun. Ready to completely reverse this situation? They all nodded. And in that moment, sitting in the humble kitchen where Grace had raised a prodigy, A plan emerged that would not only transform their lives, but redefine what authentic justice meant in the corporate realm. The young man Harrington had tried humiliating was about to become his worst nightmare. And the reversal would be as elegant as devastating. The Apex Conference Hall had never hosted a meeting like this. Harrington had assembled the entire board, local business press, and major investor representatives for what he called a demonstration of executive leadership and organizational integrity. "Colleagues," Harrington declared, adjusting his designer tie, "I've brought you here to witness how we handle problematic staff and defamation attempts against our organization." At the room's entrance, Devon entered calmly, wearing his usual simple clothing. Harrington smiled like a predator detecting prey. "Ah, our famous delivery genius has arrived. I hope you're recording because today you'll witness a fraud get completely exposed." Devon sat in the indicated chair, noticing cameras strategically positioned throughout. "Perfect. Exactly as planned." "Mr. Carter," Harrington began, walking theatrically around the table, "you claimed you improved our architecture by 94%. Our specialists have determined this was pure luck, an amateur fluke." Dr. Chun, seated in the back, exchanged a nervous glance with Devon. The plan was executing perfectly. "In fact," Harrington continued, "we've discovered you and your mother are involved in schemes to steal proprietary information. We have evidence she photographed confidential materials during overnight cleaning." A shocked murmur rippled through attendees. Devon remained still, but his eyes flashed with intensity, making some present shift uncomfortably. "That's an extremely serious allegation, Mr. Harrington," Devon said calmly. "I hope you have proof supporting that." "Of course I do," Harrington snapped, losing composure. "I hired investigators who documented everything. Photos of your mother in restricted areas. You two are meeting with suspicious individuals." Devon nodded slowly. "Interesting. And these investigators, did they follow you as well?" Harrington stopped pacing. "What are you implying?" Devon extracted a tablet and connected it to the room's projection system. "Because while your detective followed me, Elena Rodriguez from Corporate Accountability Report was investigating something far more interesting." The first image appearing on screen showed Harrington leaving an upscale restaurant with a suited man. The date displayed was 3 weeks prior. "This is Dmitry Volkov, representing Quantum Systems Global," Devon explained to the increasingly silent room. "Apex's direct competitor. You were negotiating the sale of proprietary systems for $18 million. Harrington's face paled instantly. "That's fabricated." "Digital manipulation." Devon clicked again. This time audio filled the space. Harrington's unmistakable voice. "The neural network framework is worth at least $25 million on the underground market. I can provide complete source materials by month's end." "That's been misrepresented," Harrington shouted, but his voice had lost all authority. "Misrepresented?" Devon smiled for the first time. "Let's provide more representation then." The next sequence displayed forged agreements, communications about racially motivated dismissals, and photographs of executives using prohibited substances on company premises. Exactly the material Grace had discreetly accumulated over 14 years. "My God," murmured an investor. "Victor, is this accurate?" But Devon wasn't finished. The screen now showed a complete recording of the original lobby encounter, including the discriminatory words that had been edited from some leaked videos. "And now," Devon said, his voice strengthening, "the part that truly matters." The final presentation showed actual financial results from implementing Devon's solution. In 2 weeks, it had saved the company exactly $137 million in operational expenses and increased system efficiency by 118%. All of that, Devon said, looking directly at Harrington, was created by a black teenage delivery driver using knowledge gained while my mother, a dignified woman who worked 14 years at this company, cleaned up the failures you left behind. The silence was absolute. Harrington visibly trembled, perspiration streaming down his forehead. You orchestrated this. You manipulated me." "No," Devon replied calmly, shutting off the projector. "You orchestrated your own downfall. I just documented it." At that moment, Elena Rodriguez entered, accompanied by 2 federal officers. "Victor Harrington, you're under arrest for industrial espionage, workplace discrimination based on race, and systematic tax fraud." As Harrington was handcuffed, he shouted desperately, "This is persecution. You can't do this." I built this entire enterprise. Devin stood, adjusted his simple shirt, and looked at the man who tried to destroy his family. Mr. Harrington, the difference between us is straightforward. You used your authority to oppress others. I used my intelligence to protect them. As Harrington was escorted away, a board member approached Devin. Mr. Carter, we'd like to discuss a proposal. We need a new chief executive. Devin smiled, thinking of his mother, who at that moment was probably preparing dinner in the small apartment that would soon no longer be necessary. I'll consider it, he said. But first, I need to complete a delivery. The room erupted in nervous laughter, but everyone understood they'd witnessed something extraordinary. The young man Harrington had tried to humiliate had become the architect of his own destruction, proving that true justice doesn't come from blind vengeance but from intelligent patience and courage to expose truth when the right moment finally arrives. 6 months later, Devin Carter walked through Apex halls, no longer as a delivery driver but as the youngest CEO in company history. At 20 years old, he led 200 employees and oversaw contracts worth billions annually. The irony was lost on nobody. The same lobby where he'd been humiliated now displayed his portrait on the executive wall, just below the corporate motto he'd created himself. Excellence recognizes no boundaries, only outcomes. How does it feel being called the technology sector's youngest and most innovative chief executive? Asked the Business Insider reporter during the cover story interview. Devin smiled, adjusting his tie, which still felt foreign after months. Amusing. 6 months ago, I was just the black delivery kid. Apparently, titles change when you save a company from collapse. Apex's transformation had been spectacular. Under Devin's leadership, the company had not only recovered the $89 million it had lost, but quadrupled its market valuation. His revolutionary framework was being licensed to corporations worldwide. Grace Carter, now retired with a generous pension Devin had insisted on establishing for all custodial staff, watched proudly from the front row during her son's Business Leader of the Year ceremony. I never doubted him, she whispered to friends. I always knew that boy would soar. I just didn't know he'd fly so high that even I couldn't reach him. Meanwhile, Victor Harrington had become a complete pariah in the corporate realm. After serving 5 months in federal detention for industrial espionage and racial discrimination, no technology company would hire him. His former executive colleagues crossed the street to avoid greeting him. His country club revoked his membership. His ex-wife had divorced him and claimed half his remaining wealth, and he now resided in a small suburban apartment, working as a freelance consultant for minor businesses, unaware of his scandalous history. The fall had been as brutal as public. Videos of his arrest still circulated on social platforms, always accompanied by comments about karma and poetic justice. Dr. Chun, who'd become vice president at Apex, often commented at executive meetings, I've never witnessed such a complete reversal. Devin transformed humiliation into inspiration, and Harrington transformed privilege into prison. During a conference on workplace diversity, Devin was asked how he'd managed to forgive those who tried to destroy him. Forgive? Devin chuckled. I didn't forgive him. I just used the energy he provided more intelligently. Harrington taught me that the best revenge isn't dragging your adversary down to your level, but rising so high they become irrelevant. Jennifer, the former arrogant receptionist who'd mocked him, now worked at a small accounting practice after termination for inappropriate client treatment. Whenever she saw Devin in media coverage, she felt a pang of regret remembering how she'd completely underestimated him. The conference room where it all began was renovated and transformed into the Devin Carter Innovation Hub, a space dedicated to encouraging employees from all backgrounds to share ideas without fear of judgment. On the wall, a golden plaque bears the phrase Devin repeated during his inaugural speech as CEO. Genius ignored today is tomorrow revolution. Devin maintained a simple routine. Every Friday evening, he still volunteers to deliver meals to community shelters. To remember where I came from, he explained. And so other young people can see that it doesn't matter where you are today, it matters where you're going. Elena Rodriguez, the journalist who'd helped expose the corruption, wrote a book about the case that became a bestseller. The title, From Delivery Routes to Executive Suites, How Truth Dismantled an Empire of Deception. 2 years after his initial humiliation, Devin received an invitation to speak at Princeton University, the same institution he'd declined to care for his mother. At the presentation's conclusion, a student raised their hand. If you could go back in time, would you change anything? Devin thought for a moment, looking at the auditorium filled with inspired young people. I would change only one thing. I would have delivered that order 5 minutes earlier, so I'd have had more time to see Harrington's shocked expression when he realized he underestimated the wrong kid. The audience exploded in laughter and applause. Victor Harrington tried to destroy a talented young black man, but ended up unwittingly building the legend of Devin Carter. The former CEO learned the hard way that true revenge isn't matching humiliation with humiliation. It's achieving such resounding success that your oppressors spend the rest of their lives wondering how they could have been so blind. If this story moved you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to discover more authentic stories of people who transformed injustice into fuel for extraordinary achievement.